This is Geek Girl TV, and I'm your Geek Girl host, Eve Park, the girl for whom the wind blows and the angels sing. Not really. Sometimes I wish I could be, though. You know what I mean, right? Like on TV, when a girl walks into the room that the protagonist is in love with, and time slows down, and music starts playing, and it's all soft lighting, and the fan's blowing, and her hair is flying everywhere, but it doesn't get messed up. Well, I wish that my theme song had words, and that they made me feel like that. So I was wondering if you could help me out. I know how talented you are. I would really appreciate it. You could start from scratch, or just lay vocals over the song I already have. But whichever you do, please make sure it's no longer than the song I already use, which is only about 20 seconds. And when you're done, you know where to send it. But speaking of sending me things, thank you to everyone who took the time to leave me feedback. My favorite comment this week was from Amarth Darrow. I just had to send a thank you email, because you made my day a little better with the knowledge that someone else in the world has a bag of dice on their desk. Can't wait till the next show. Thanks, Amarth Darrow. But I don't think we're the only ones. Do you have a bag of dice on your desk? If you do, why don't you let me know who you are, so that we know we're not the only ones? You could even send me a picture, or you could show everyone how you roll 20s. And I want to give a special thanks to Rick DTW, who left me a review at the iTunes Music Store. In the news. Since I last saw you, Next Generation published an article featuring gaming's top 50 influential journalists. And although the top 50 don't appear to be presented in any particular order, 3 of my favorite journalists are right there in one screenshot. First, there's Gabe and Tycho of Penny Arcade. They produce gaming webcomics about 3 times a week. In addition, Penny Arcade has a blog that links to all the source stories that inspire the comics or that they just want to rant about. So if you don't have a lot of time to research gaming current events for yourself, Penny Arcade is a great place to be exposed to the news that gamers are talking about, read insightful information about video games, and at least walk away with a laugh. And for die-hard fans, there's even an audio podcast that gives insight into the comic creation process. It's published sporadically at best. There's a lot more I could say because I've been a fan for a long time, but I'd like to move on to the other guy in that screenshot. Shu! Editor of EGM. Electronic Gaming Monthly is my favorite video game magazine, and I think he's to blame. My favorite parts are articles actually written by Shu and the comic in the back. In local news, Geek Girl TV Episode 1, where I interview Gary and we talk about heroes, inspired a whole new podcast. It's called Heroes Cast, and it's clevermedia's first audio podcast and first long-format podcast. It's sort of modeled after Lost Cast. It's published every Tuesday after Heroes is aired on NBC, and it features Gary, Vid, and myself. Although I actually have to provide a little correction to the first episode of the Heroes Cast. In Episode 1, we hypothesize what happens after the car crash. But on NBC.com, there's a digital comic book that accompanies each one of the Heroes episodes. And last week's comic book explains exactly what happens after the car crash. I recently discovered that in addition to the digital comic books online, there's also 2 exclusive physical comic books. One that was released at Comic-Con San Diego and the other at Wizard World Chicago. They're going for about $40 each, and I haven't gotten my hands onto either. And lastly in the news, a story about Britney Spears' baby fat is not worth the bandwidth. See you next week. That's all I have for this week, but please do send me an email. I'd love to know what you think of the show and how I can make it better. I'd also like to know, if you were a superhero, what would your name and superpower be?